Welcome into Surviving Paradise, the podcast that takes a sometimes serious, oftentimes humorous look at the claim by the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses that they are creating and maintaining a modern day spiritual paradise. I'm your host here, Stacy Bauman, former elder, ministerial servant, and a kid raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the 70s and 80s. As I do, trigger warning, we try to have some fun here while healing. Each episode features sarcasm, humor, and more, never meant to offend. Thank you for being here. I must say it has taken me a week or so to rebound from the very important information I shared here on this show last week. And I'll say it again. The world, particularly the authorities and parents, Jehovah's Witness parents, need to know how the governing body are handling things such as child safety. And all of it is highlighted in their updated version of the Elder's Handbook. Please get your hands on this. Acquaint yourself with it. Know how it is and what it is they are and are not doing to protect our little people, particularly those inside kingdom halls. And I'm going to rail against this ongoing. It's going to be an ongoing project for me. And I was so heartened to see some of the messages, DMs, and posts I got from folks who were equally upset about the information I shared here last week. And I really, really hope all of us put our best foot forward to create some awareness on this. Thank you. Very encouraging to see for me personally. And so I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. I'm going to spend some time this week reviewing the latest dose of spiritual food from the September 2025 JW broadcast. And I'm going to lift a few things that stood out to me. Just a couple. There were several, and I can't do this thing justice. You can even use that term, bit of an oxymoron, but I'm going to pick out a few highlights. So let's cue the music and the B-roll video shots that start every JW broadcast. Our host this month is none other than Brother James Mance, who is a helper to the writing committee. After watching him in action, I understood a few things about the spiritual food being served. It looks like they're mixing it up this month, undoubtedly because the future king priests are probably preparing for the upcoming annual meeting, which is right around the corner, folks. There's undoubtedly going to be new light. But Brother Mance kicks it off and tells us that this month's theme will focus on, of all things, comfort. And truthfully, I can't imagine how anyone inside Jehovah's Witnesses can remotely be comfortable considering the contents we just reviewed in the updated Elder's Handbook. Yeah, but here we are. Distracting people is an art form for the 11 would-be kings in upstate New York. Brother Mance tells us that everything contained in the next 59 plus minutes is going to bring you and I comfort. We're going to be comforted. From 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 3 and 4 of the New World Translation, he kicks it off with, quote, "Praised be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of tender mercies and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our trials, so that we may be able to comfort others in any sort of trial with the comfort that we receive from God." End quote. Okay, theme scripture in place. We've got Brother Mance. He's going to make us all more comfortable. So I want to encourage anyone that's listening in, within reason, of course. If you're on a treadmill, driving a car, don't take this literally, but get comfortable. The governing body is doling out comfort for Jehovah's Witnesses this month. Is it ironic? Well, yes. Again, considering what we just talked about last week, but nonetheless, my weekly reminder that these men, the 11 of them, Speak for the Almighty and His Son. I do this every week because I'm hoping there might be at least one new person, hopefully a current Jehovah's Witness, that may want to consider what they claim versus what we're seeing. So ease back in the chair and prepare to be comforted. He begins with, quote, "From the time we were born, all of us have been in need of comfort." You don't remember the first time you needed comfort because you were hungry, uncomfortable, or needed to be held. But you probably do remember the last time you needed comfort. End quote. Wow. What a powerful introduction, Brother Mance. Gosh, these 11 kings in New York are incredibly smart. It's redundant at this point, but yes, yeah. My mind immediately went to a few things regarding this powerful illustration and introduction. Brother Mance, you may want to encourage your overlords to stop using baby illustrations. Okay? It's a good idea to stop with the babies. You see, your goofiest king informed Jehovah's Witnesses that babies are actually, and I quote him, little enemies of God. So by leaning into the baby thing yet again to kick off this broadcast, you're only calling into question, for us thinking people, why parents even want to comfort their babies. They're enemies of Jehovah. It doesn't matter if they're hungry. It doesn't matter if they're uncomfortable because they just loaded up their diapers. And who wants to hold a crying baby after all? Much less someone that Stephen Letts says is actually a little enemy of Jehovah's. You see, Brother Mance, the governing body has made very clear in billions upon billions of pages of their publications, their spiritual food, that we would never, under any circumstances, want to support or comfort any of Jehovah's enemies. Can I give you a few reminders from your own library? From the You Can Be God's Friend book, Lesson 8, Who Are God's Enemies? We are told, quote, Satan and the demons hate Jehovah. They are enemies of God, and they want to make you an enemy of God. You must choose whom you want to please, Satan or Jehovah. If you want everlasting life, you must choose to do God's will. Satan has many tricks and ways to deceive people. Most people are being fooled by him. End quote. Indeed. Babies are enemies of God. So, giving them comfort, Brother Mance, would seem to be out of the question, much less changing their diapers. In fact, you've been teaching us for decades just how we should view an enemy of God. From the Watchtower of October 1st, 1952, page 599, paragraphs 11 and 12, we were told this from the faithful slave, quote, we must hate in the truest sense, which is to regard with extreme and active aversion, to consider as loathsome, odious, filthy, to detest. Surely any haters of God are not fit to live on his beautiful earth. The earth will be rid of the wicked, and we shall not need to lift a finger to cause physical harm to come to them, for God will attend to that. But we must have a proper perspective of these enemies. What do you do with anything loathsome or repugnant that you detest and abhor? The question is simple. Excuse me, backing up. The answer is simple. You get away from it or you remove it from your presence. You do not want to have anything at all to do with it. End quote. So as we kick off the September JW broadcast with Brother Mance and his illustration, I must say he's off to a very strong start. It's all very apropos. You see, his boss, Stephen Lett, said that babies are little enemies of God. They don't deserve comfort, according to you fellas. I just read it back to you. But I can confirm that a little baby who has filled their diaper is in fact odious and filthy. So there is that. I'll give you that. So you see, Brother Mance, I'm going to have to give you a W on your theocratic school assignment, and you're only a couple seconds into the broadcast. I know it's embarrassing, you're on camera, but you clearly don't understand the basic doctrines of Jehovah's Witnesses, all of which were given to us by future King Priest Stephen Lett. But carry on. And how about one more ironic contradiction for those that might be paying attention early in the broadcast? Brother Mance is leaning into the little baby illustration yet again, showing that he clearly doesn't listen to his boss, Stephen Lett, or missed a meeting, maybe the meeting that Stephen Lett said this in. But has anyone considered that this guy is now going to tell us where to find comfort by pointing to a child? The same child that will likely go on to get baptized, inevitably, as kids do, break one of their man-made rules, and then possibly be shunned for the rest of their life by the same parent that, according to his intro, was at one point making them comfortable when they needed them the most. I guess I'll just say here, hey buddy, when is the cutoff point where we can no longer offer our own children comfort if they're going through something painful? You make me cut them off when you decide you are uncomfortable. But giving family comfort comes natural to the rest of us, Brother Mance. Any thoughts on this big guy? Any thoughts? I've blown up your intro, which was about 7 seconds long, and of course set the stage for what follows. But babies and stuff. Babies that are enemies of God, and you may ask us to eventually cut them off from comfort at some point in their lives anyway. And with that, welcome to the September JW broadcast. We're mere seconds into it, and I must say at this point, it's very clear. There's not a lot of very smart guys back there in New York, is there? Not a lot of smart guys. Not a lot of them. But please proceed. Because Jehovah's Witnesses, including myself, us evil apostates, are all here looking for comfort. Comfort only you can provide. And what better place to start than with the comforting counsel of Jesus' Royal Court, New York? He goes on to claim that all of us are in need of comfort and includes the comment that Psalms chapter 90 and verse 10, and I quote, poetically, pay attention to that, poetically describes our lives as humans. You see, at that moment, I think I have at least 2 brain cells that fire. I laughed out loud and said, oh, I see how this works. Psalms, and the book right next to it, Proverbs, he's admitting are poems. They're poems. They're poetic. That is, of course, until you're changing all your doctrines, people are dying, and a whole bunch of other things, because you need to take a verse out of a poem in Proverbs, call it new light, and make it mean something completely else. But again, you're mere seconds into this broadcast showing us how inept and, more importantly, how deceitful this organization is. They know Psalms and Proverbs are poems. But carry on. Let's read Psalms chapter 90 and verse 10 of the New World Translation, where Brother Mance says, quote, "The span of our life is 70 years, or 80 if one is especially strong. But they are filled with trouble and sorrow. They quickly pass by and away we fly." End quote. Okay, poetic indeed. You know, unlike New Light and Proverb, not a poem because we need it to not be a poem. Got it? Okay. As always, the endless list of contradictions begin whenever you're quoting the ancient book that has a few problems of its own. A few problems. Yes, the Bible does say this at Psalms 90:10, and yes, it's mostly true, 70 or 80 years. And there are lots of problems. So why then did this podcast host think that this is a weird verse to begin with? And why would a Jehovah's Witness ever need comfort despite Psalms 90:10? Well, I guess I found this all weird from the outset because the same governing body Brother Mance works for that had him read Psalms 90:10 also wrote the Watchtower of March 1st, 1988, page 17, where they told us, quote, "Indeed, in every country, Jehovah's people are the best and the happiest." End quote. Not sure how they measured that, but we'll take their word for it, right? Seems pretty straightforward, but I must say, Brother Mance, it clearly doesn't match Psalms 90:10, which says that life is filled with sorrow, and then we die. That's what you just read to us. So which one is it? Best and happiest people on earth, or a life of sorrow and we need comfort? I see what you're doing here. No, I don't. I don't have a clue. And while we're at it, why in the world would the happiest people on earth ever need comfort? I'm going to reemphasize it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting a voice in my ear. It's in the earpiece. Oh, they had some open studio time and they needed to fill it. They're content creators after all. Got it. Despite being less than 3 minutes into the September 2025 JW broadcast, we've had several contradictions right within the first 180 seconds. I'm already confused, but hey, kick back, folks. We're all here to get what he calls comfort. Let's get some comfort. Just to let us all know how uncomfortable we actually are, he's going to tell us how uncomfortable we are. The next minute of his talk features a long list of reasons that you and I are all incredibly miserable. I know. The Watchtower says the witnesses are the best and happiest. He wants to re-emphasize, well, we said that, but you're actually completely miserable, and here's the reasons why. Looking into the camera, he goes on a diatribe, a long list. This is not the full list, where he mentions things like death, discipline, economic problems, accidents, sickness, natural disasters, and the one that really pissed me off when he said it, quote, "becoming a victim of abuse," end quote. Oh boy, the disgusting irony. On and on he goes for a few seconds. He even does this by showing us B-roll video shots of people in judicial meetings and a woman sitting on her bedroom floor bawling uncontrollably. I've never seen them post a video like this before. It's a woman that we're supposed to believe is a sister, and it's a B-roll video shot, and she's bawling. Her body is shaking. And just watching it bothered me. It hurt me. But look, Jesus also, as you might remember, you remember when Jesus did this stuff too, right? He wanted to offer comfort, so he reaffirmed why we needed it and how miserable we are, and also said, look over there at that woman laying in a ditch crying. See how miserable she is? Let's talk comfort. Jesus always liked to reel off a long list of reasons we hated life before he hit you with some actual real comfort, right? There's quite a few stories. I'm sure you're referencing them in your mind right now. But just reinforce that you were miserable, that you needed him, and by extension now, you need the governing body. For example, looking at Jesus who set the tone for the heavens 11 at Matthew 11:28 through 30 of the New World Translation, see how Jesus did what Brother Mance did right here, told us how miserable life was first. He says, quote, "Come to me, all you who are toiling and loaded down, and I will refresh you. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am mild-tempered and lowly in heart, and you will find refreshment for yourselves. For my yoke is kindly, and my load is light." End quote. And I say this to you because if you haven't noticed, life sucks. And here's the 25 reasons why it sucks. No, it's not there. It's not in the verse. I guess he forgot a few verses in the Bible where he listed everything that was wrong with a Jewish person's life back in the day. He did the unthinkable, something the governing body doesn't, and just cut right to the comfort part. He just went right to how to help people. Isn't it interesting? And I got to tell you, this triggered in me so many memories. I used to marvel at this psychological ploy that is leveraged in every meeting by an elder and a public speaker. Every single public talk outline back in the day, don't know anymore, began with 15 minutes of reinforcement of how miserable we all were, or how evil everyone else was, or how awful the world was around us. You'd show up on Sunday, you'd sit in that chair, and you could expect 15 to 20 minutes of the Sunday talk to feature reminders of how much life sucks. Then we would jump into all the answers, right? The comfort part they refer to. And guess what? It included doing exactly what the audience was doing. Showing up to the Kingdom Hall, listening to the governing body, and studying their literature. There's your comfort. That's the answer to all of your problems. One giant circle of reinforcement that first you hated life, it kind of sucked, and you needed them to make it better. And I got to tell you, this is their tried and true formula, and it has not changed in this organization for well over a century. You need comfort. You're facing life's problems, which are inevitable, and they are the only ones that can give you that comfort. And with that, I'll just say it again. Let the contradictions of the September 2025 JW broadcast begin. He goes on to claim we may need comfort in our worship, complete with a B-roll video shot of a different woman, a sister, now on her kitchen floor with a dishwasher open, a shattered plate on the floor, and her uncontrollably bawling. We've gotten 2 shots of sisters bawling their eyes out. With his voiceover, Brother Mance, of all the things that make us miserable about being a Jehovah's Witness. This is the worship part he wants to focus on. And at this point, if you showed up to JW Broadcasting in a fairly decent mood, it is now gone. It's shot. This introduction, the first few minutes, has sent you, or maybe me, into a depression. Thanks. All I can say is thanks, and I see what you're doing here. I see what you're doing. In fact, I used to do it for you as an elder. I now need comfort. I got to keep listening because you've bummed me out. Thank you, Brother Mance. The formula works. He then goes on to read 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 6 and 7, and goes on to tell us Jehovah will take all of our anxiety. Well, really? Willie? I got to say at this point, please don't take a anonymous poll of Jehovah's Witnesses regarding anxiety. Please don't do it. I don't think you're going to like the answers. For example, and I'm going way back in history, there are many, I encourage the research, but I'm going way back to 1946. You think, oh, life was better. We weren't to the 50s yet. It was easier back then, right? Way back in 1946, by Dr. Gosta Rylander, who concluded the following after studying Jehovah's Witnesses on the subject of mental illness. And it's posted in a study by the Christian Research Institute. It tells us, quote, in 1946, Gosta Rylander investigated a sample of conscientious objectors imprisoned in Sweden. End quote for a moment. Sweden. Jehovah's Witnesses in Sweden. I think most people in 2025 recognize that part of the world as being very peaceful, very neutral. They talk about Sweden and Switzerland and places where they don't seem to always be headline news. People seem to live pretty quiet lives. But she was studying witnesses in Sweden. It continues, quote, of the 135 randomly selected cases, 126 were Jehovah's Witnesses. Of these 126, Rylander diagnosed 51 as neurotic, 42 as psychotic, 32 as mentally retarded, and 5 as brain damaged. It says in parentheses, quote, some cases were in 2 or more categories. Diagnosis was made solely on the basis of behavior that was clearly pathological, such as irrational paranoia or severe long-term depression. Rylander also concluded from the subject's medical records and his interviews that their pathological states were commonly evident before conversion, and the Watchtower's influence was often further detrimental to their mental health, sometimes severely so. End quote. And hey, the guys who are doling out comfort this month on JW Broadcasting have gotten better since 1946, right? They've gotten better. They've improved a few things, right? Surely generations that now overlap, 1975, blood, disfellowshipping, and a million other changes that have happened since 1945 have truly, it has to be so, right? Have truly lent comfort to the lives of Jehovah's Witnesses, right? But according to the Apostle Peter that we just read, Jehovah cares about your anxiety. Jehovah cares so much. He has his guys in New York do what they can to add to your anxiety. Yeah, let's be honest, without spending too much time, I covered in lots of episodes, they claim everything comes from Jehovah and Jesus, particularly Jesus is 1914. And I gotta tell you, there might not have been a more uncomfortable time in Jehovah's Witnesses, a time of greater anxiety than, I don't know, the last 100 years. But Brother Mance continues. His introduction continues with this, quote, Jehovah has always been the ultimate source of true comfort, end quote. Oh no. Uh-oh. Do you want to know where my mind went immediately? My mind immediately went to Jesus' prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane when he's about to be killed, when he himself asked Jehovah why he was ditching him in his moment of need. Remember? Why have you forsaken me? Why'd you ditch me? But let's not get technical. According to Brother Mance, Jehovah has always been the ultimate source of true comfort. He then goes on to say something that brought me great joy. He says that, quote, Moses was convinced that Jehovah would comfort him, no matter the situation he faced. I'm going to say that again. Direct quote, no matter the situation he faced. Back to the quote, he wrote at Deuteronomy 33:27, God is a refuge from ancient times. His everlasting arms are beneath you. End quote. Oh no. Well, listen. I know that this will make some ironically uncomfortable. Those that see the Bible as a book written by an Almighty. I do not. I'm very open about it. But just a reminder for those that have actually read the Bible itself, which I might add is not most Jehovah's Witnesses. I beat that drum a lot, but you'd be surprised how many have never even read the Bible. Nonetheless, those that have, let's talk about Moses. Moses was very confident in Jehovah, according to Brother Mance. And listen, who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't be confident in Jehovah, especially if your name is Moses? Do you remember the time when Jehovah teased, or what do the kids say now, trolled Moses by taking him up to a mountaintop and saying, look over there. There's the promised land. You've been making your way there for many decades. It was a really nice view of it. And then Jehovah proceeded to, he killed Moses. yeah, he took Moses' life. But comfort and stuff. Let's talk about comfort. Moses was always very comfortable. And Jehovah always comforted Moses, right? Look over there. See how pretty it is? You're dead. I know it inspires confidence in me. I mean, Brother Mance, you're clearly showing how smart you are. In other words, forget wasting your life pioneering or standing out front of a book cart handing out their publications. Our guy Moses, he gave up a few things. He gave up being a powerful prince in Egypt. He took a window washing job instead. Apologies, my mistake, scratch that. He became a shepherd of sheep in the wilderness for multiple decades. He went on to take on the most powerful man on earth in Pharaoh. Somehow, he dodged 10 plagues that he told him were coming. Wasn't it wild the time he split open an entire sea and walked on the dry seabed? He then went on to wander around in the desert for 40 years, eating bird food that was given to them from heaven and listening to everyone bitch at him about everything. He hiked a mountain in nothing but his sandals. He did that twice. Remember, to get the 10 Commandments? He had his siblings complain about his wife. He endured public fights from others, including his relative or cousin Korah. He had to somehow dodge snakes biting everyone and make a snake idol. Real weird. On and on. Only to have the God of comfort, according to Brother Mance, totally troll him by then taking him up to another mountain. This is the third one we know about, showing him everything he was going to miss out on, and then killing him. Wow. I am so comfortable right now. The comfort I'm pulling from this broadcast. I am definitely, gotta tell you, I'm definitely feeling more comfortable as a Jehovah's Witness about book carts, pioneering, and making sure I donate online. That seems pretty simple at this point because of Moses and stuff. Yeah. Brother Mance, I'm sure Moses, who historians now agree in 2025, probably, without question, 99.9% ever existed, because there is zero proof of him anywhere. I'm sure that this guy, though, was very confident, as you put it, in Jehovah's comfort. I guess until Jehovah whacked him after showing him what he was going to miss out on. In fact, I gotta say it because it never gets old, my favorite part of Moses and the Moses story in Deuteronomy, which is where he just took us, is found just 6 verses later from the verse he read on this broadcast, where the ultra comfortable Moses, we find him writing about his own death from the grave on that mountaintop. Not kidding. Jehovah's Witnesses teach Moses wrote Deuteronomy and he somehow wrote about his own death, probably from the mountaintop grave or wherever Jehovah put him. Who knows? But listen, put all those crazy facts aside from their book and their literature. Jehovah is the giver of comfort, and we are to believe that Moses was very confident that he would receive comfort at any given time, as he put it, no matter what he faced. Where, when, how, we aren't sure. But Moses was undoubtedly, evidently, apparently, very confident in Jehovah's comfort. I'll move on. Brother Mance continues by explaining that we have fallen and we can't get back up. And when that happens, Jehovah will wrap his arms around us and gently lift us off the ground. And I immediately thought, like he did with Moses, he put him in the ground. I don't know. They're not very smart, folks. This is too easy. If there is one thing I learned as a Jehovah's Witness, it's that Jehovah is very selective on all things comfort. Yeah, if you want to argue that, let's go. Your kid has made a mistake and they were baptized as a child and they're now disfellowshipped. Prepare for the kid and for the entire family to be treated differently by everyone else in the congregation. Is that comfort? You have a question about generations and how they suddenly overlap and no one else knows this. The elders will ignore comforting you by taking you to the back room and accuse you of maybe being an apostate. It's all very comforting. On and on. Has anyone seen Jehovah in any of this stuff? All the comfort, these arms that will lift you up like he did Moses. Brother Mance goes on to reel off more scriptures about how Jehovah is the ultimate source of relief and comfort, then points us all to the book Scriptures for Christian Living and highlights the page titled Comfort. But then says, quote, which lists the many causes of discouragement, end quote. Listen, I say it all the time. Sorry for the laughter. This is unreal. Is he serious? Does he hear himself? He's a helper to the writing committee. You take us to a book with a page titled Comfort and then admit that it lists the many causes of discouragement? What? Folks, what? He continues by saying lots of people in the Bible needed comfort and we should be like them, and that Jehovah always, and I do mean always, listens to our pleas for help. And of course, it immediately went from laughter to a frown. I can think of several ongoing lawsuits from victims of abuse that would beg to differ with this statement. Even kids who haven't spoken to their mom in years. All caused by the guy saying this and his bosses, and they're not getting any comfort from Jehovah. They're not getting comfort from anybody inside this organization. But pay no attention to the obvious or to the search results you can put into Google. Just like Moses climbed that mountain. Wait, hold tight. That didn't end well, folks. There wasn't a lot of comfort for Moses. Hold tight. He continues by reading 2 Corinthians 1, 3, and 4, the New World Translation, which says, quote, praised be the God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of tender mercies and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our trials, so that we may be able to comfort others in any sort of trial with the comfort that we receive from God, end quote. He claims that all comfort originates with Jehovah, and then makes the claim that Jehovah comforts us by means of our brothers and sisters. Ah, yes, other uncomfortable people who can also list all the reasons they're discouraged. But Jehovah is the ultimate comforter, but he does that through other people in your congregation who are also needing comfort. Do you see how that works? Are you following? Yeah, I'm not either. He then whisks the audience to South Africa to meet a sister named Claudine, who he says had a surgery during COVID-19 epidemic and had no visitors. But she was determined to do what? Jehovah apparently wouldn't. She was determined to comfort others. And how did Claudine provide comfort to others? Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's the real message of this broadcast. You see, Claudine, who just had surgery, who was dodging COVID-19, no one was taking care of her. They claim that comfort was coming from Jehovah through Claudine because she started calling people to start Bible studies, and she ended up with 16 Bible studies with other women. I can't imagine it wasn't because they were isolated during COVID, they needed a friend, they needed community. No, it's because it's 16 Bible studies. You see, comfort means turning people into Jehovah's Witnesses. So those people can then comfort others and turn those new people into Jehovah's Witnesses so they can start Bible studies and then they get more Jehovah's. You get the idea. And for those of us around during Avon's heyday and Tupperware's heyday, these type of comforting schemes, they're real lifesavers. He then says those depressed may not want to receive help. And I'll be damned. He takes us back, oh boy, to Moses. I'm trying to move on from Moses. But then he mentions Naomi, all in an effort to encourage Jehovah's Witnesses to never withdraw from their brothers and sisters without ever addressing that much of a Jehovah's Witness's discomfort oftentimes comes from the religion and its culture itself. He does what the governing body always does. He tells us the answer is to pray. Oh, and then he says this, quote, apply the words of Proverbs 3:27. Do not withhold good from those to whom you should give it, if it is within your power to help, end quote. And now I'm going to beat the drum. The same organization and men that just released an elder's handbook stating it's optional. It is optional in print to protect children from abusers when all they have to do is remove the criminal and the abuser and report them to the authorities, do not seem to understand that verse, Proverbs 3:27, because I'm pretty damn sure they are withholding good from children who more than deserve it, and it's most certainly in their power to help. Proverbs 3:27. Do you mean apply it like that, Brother Metz? These are really terrible men. Terrible, selfish, greedy, dangerous men. To read Proverbs 3:27, do not withhold good from those to whom you should give it when it's within your power to do it, and then release a book like that. And it's not like it was new. These are terrible men. Period. He then goes on to show us B-roll videos. I can't imagine the money they spend on this stuff, of people crying and hugging without ever addressing that they are the cause of much of the suffering of Jehovah's Witnesses. Oh, and we can't forget that many Jehovah's Witnesses are commanded to never speak to someone, even a family member, a child, a parent, that broke one of their organization's rules and has been kicked out. It's all just so comforting. You can play these videos all you want. People with 4 brain cells are looking at this going, this is all a lie. It's that simple. And according to the Bible, it shouldn't matter. I should be comforting those that you tell me I have to shun. Yeah. but they never address this. They've got a 59-minute JW broadcast to pop out, and they got their own message. So blah, blah, blah. He drones on and on. I'm going to skip over much of it. But he then tells us we can see how to comfort each other by taking us to the next segment of the video. And you remember, this is part of the JW broadcast schedule now. It's called Lessons from the Bible. Nope. It's called Lessons from the Watchtower. Well, I'll look at that. I'm not going to go into great detail on the video interviews. There's plenty of them. As always, I encourage people to go watch them if they'd like to be educated. They're not fun to watch. But they continue to use other people's misery as a starting point for how they alone can offer the comfort. We are treated to a brother whose home was flooded, then a Bethelite sister whose father has a stroke. She then pauses on video, the tears start coming, and she says that her brother left the organization. She is clearly holding back the floodgates of emotion, then says her father passed away. Then we meet another brother who lost his wife. He begins to weep on camera. The music is sad. The scenes are sad. They go on to relate they got phone calls and had places to stay, courtesy of their brothers and sisters. And I have to say it, just like I did to my computer monitor watching it, folks, this isn't unique to Jehovah's Witnesses. All of these are things good people do on this planet. Even those that don't worship Jehovah, good people offer comfort to other people, oftentimes strangers. This isn't unique to Jehovah's Witnesses. But it doesn't stop there. During the sister's portion of the interview, we see her journaling, when they then flash up a box on the screen that features the following quote from the January 2020 Watchtower. It says, quote, "I could freely express myself without the feeling of being judged." End quote. Can you now? Can you? Are you sure? Does this include questioning the governing body? Because I'm asking for a few million other people. I got to tell you, I hit the pause button, I backed it up, and I reread this box, this quote, on the video several times. They want us to know that we can express ourselves without being judged. Really? Who wants to tell Brother Mance he isn't doing much to help the writing committee, even though his title is helper? Because the very men he works for have also said this. From the January 15th, 1983 Watchtower, page 22, quote, "Avoid questioning the counsel that is provided by God's visible organization." End quote. Or how about this one? From the July 15th, 1974 Watchtower, page 441, quote, "The point is that Christians have implicit trust in their Heavenly Father. They do not question what He tells them through His written word and organization." End quote. Well now, okay. This certainly doesn't match what Brother Mance is highlighting here on camera. According to them, I shouldn't be expressing any feelings or questions regarding this organization. But they're claiming in this little box for the witness world to see that they won't be judged if they do it. Okay. And I got to tell you, someone sharing feelings of doubt that Stephen Lett, Mark Sanderson, or David Splain, they're just kind of questioning, are these really the wisest guys, the pick of the litter? Or are they really the best Jehovah can find? And if they then express themselves or these feelings to someone privately, Do you really expect us to believe that they will not be judged? I have it on pause. I can see what you're saying. What happens next if I share my opinions, my feelings, or have questions with one of my brothers or sisters? If I share my feelings on how, it's pretty weird, generations don't overlap, will you then, as the theme of this broadcast, comfort me? You're not going to judge me, right? If I tell you that I have a hard time believing that a 500-year-old guy couldn't get his wife pregnant, that he could build an ark, that he could walk to the Antarctica and back with a couple of penguins preaching all along the way, my guy Noah, if I express some doubts about his life, what's going to happen to me? As your neat quote here from the January 2020 Watchtower says, I will also, quote, not be judged, unquote. Okay. And at this point, if you're a Jehovah's Witness watching this, I don't know how you're not insulted. I mean, there's many reasons and everybody's different. But to put this up as a highlight, you can have all kinds of feelings and express them. You won't be judged. Nope, you'll be on the fast track to a room with 3 guys and kicked out. Period. End of discussion. In fact, they don't even ask you if you don't believe in the Bible. There are thousands of people that will tell you that when they started expressing doubts or they're sharing their feelings or asking questions, the only question they were met with were, do you believe the governing body is the faithful and discreet slave? Boom, you're out of here. The lying these guys do on camera it's just something to behold. But he then moves on to how people get comfort from their many medical and hospital programs, including experiences from Jehovah's Witnesses that have been hospitalized, as well as, you guessed it, some of their family and the survivors. We meet Ricardo, an elder serving on the patient visitation group. He claims on camera that the elders are there to offer practical help, but mostly, as he says, spiritual help. Confession, I never served in this capacity when I was an elder, but I can confirm that with the right type of brother in this role, it can be very comforting to someone in the hospital. A well-meaning guy who really takes it seriously. It can be comforting. But I felt pity watching some of these elders being interviewed in this segment. You can tell, and I can confirm, some of them really care about people. You can see it in their eyes. You really can. But make no mistake, these committees that they want to prop up as sources of comfort, they serve another purpose. It has nothing to do with comfort. You see, if you're a Jehovah's Witness and don't know this, this is also in the Elder's Handbook. The patient visitation group is run and scheduled by the Hospital Liaison Committee, which works directly with medical professionals on, oh, would you look at that, alternatives to blood transfusions. In fact, this group, and by extension the PVG, which goes in to give you a hug and might learn a few things and then share it with them, they monitor what you're doing during your medical stay, no matter how serious it might be. Even the outside world, worldly people, people under the control of Satan, knows that the HLC, and by extension their little brother, the PVG that they assign, will tell the elders if you accepted blood. And to protect them from legal liability for giving deadly advice, they've changed the punishment to make any blood transfusion or blood product you accept, well, it was your decision. And you tell me if you can just feel, as Brother Mance says the theme is, the comfort. From the now defunct Jehovah's Witness Office of Public Information website, they said this, quote, a JW Liaison Committee chair member stated that if a baptized member of the faith willfully and without regret accepts a blood transfusion, he indicates by his actions that he no longer wishes to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. The individual revokes his own membership by his actions. That came from Chuck Goodvin, Hospital Liaison Committee for Jehovah's Witnesses, in a personal communication. You may have just needed comfort, but the patient visitation group just happened to notice that you made a personal decision about your own body and life, and well, in their mind, they are sure to tell the Hospital Liaison Committee that you have now rejected Jehovah. It's your decision, though, right? You will now be shunned because you wanted to live. But here is Brother Mance claiming that this is all very comforting. It's comforting. It's warm and fuzzy. He next moves on to comforting caregivers, those that take care of elderly parents. Lots of video shots. More interviews featuring middle-aged people taking care of their older parents and how they need comfort too. We meet Brother Damian Morales from Mexico, who takes care of a disabled child, and he shares, quote, "It takes 2 to 3 hours to get ready for the meetings or the ministry," end quote. And yeah, cue my baby brain crying. It broke my heart. Just breaks my heart. Dear Damien, you get a pass, buddy. You get a pass, my friend. You're taking care of a beautiful disabled child on your own by yourself. You do not need to spend hours preparing to hear the same awful speaker in your congregation remind you for the millionth time that paradise is coming any second now. And you sure as hell have better things to do than stand at a book cart for this company, Stratch organization. But rest assured, my friends, the comfort in this segment is featuring all their prayers and personal study, and how it's those things that bring someone like Damian Morales comfort, as he alone takes care of a disabled child. It's what he does for the organization that brings him comfort. It's just so sick. It's just sick. I'm experiencing fatigue. I'm just tired, folks. I'm sick of them leveraging other people's pain to make their point. You know they don't hang out with these people after the video shoot. They don't hang out with them. They don't check in on Damian Morales in Mexico. Not at all. No way that happens. So it's all just disingenuous and gross. Moving on, the next segment features one that is rapidly becoming one of my favorites. It's called, as you remember last month, Dig for Treasure. In the Bible, of course. That's where the treasure is. And this month, we are digging for treasure in the book of Joel. No one uses their imagination or creates wild supposition about ancient books that have been changed thousands of times through the centuries, like Heaven's 11 in New York. Nobody does it better. It looks like they're at it again, realizing how tough it is to be a content creator. And as you might guess, I refuse to give a Bible highlights. I gave plenty of those 6-minute talks back in the day. The entire segment is filled with your standard, quote, "Imagine how Joel felt," end quote. Or, quote, "This must have been so reassuring to Joel," end quote. Throw in some evidentlys and a few apparentlys, and we've got two brothers doing voiceover on a tiny book in the Bible that is supposed to be mined for treasure. Dig for it, and might I add, comfort. You're supposed to find comfort in Joel. Not mentioned in this segment is that the book of Joel opens with a description of devastating locust plagues, with waves of the insect wiping out all vegetation. But it's comforting. Joel in the book frames his immediate ecological catastrophe as a vivid sign of Jehovah's approaching judgment, using this imagery of locusts as an unstoppable army. Are you getting comfort yet. As the book of Joel progresses, and again, this is my Bible highlights, the language intensifies into powerful apocalyptic poetry. Odd that they chose this one with a themed episode of comfort. It goes on to describe the sun and moon being darkened and the heavens and earth trembling as signs of the day of Jehovah. If you're thinking, did he say Joel or Revelation? You'd be right. There you go, thinking again. I'm sure when John wrote Revelation, there was no plagiarism, or whoever wrote it. There was no plagiarism from Joel. Locusts, sun getting dark, people. It sounds familiar. Also not mentioned in this segment, Dig for Treasure, is that unlike most prophetic books in the Bible that are set in specific historical periods, the book of Joel does not even state when it was written. Scholars today believe it was either in the 9th or 4th century BCE. Nobody knows, not even the governing body. And this ambiguity makes it even harder to kind of figure out when these exact events are that are going to happen, according to Joel. It also makes that whole comfort thing seem a little weird. But my favorite moment of this segment is when one of the voiceover brothers says, quote, Jehovah's actions reveal his character, end quote. Yes, they certainly do. I would agree. And I was digging, guys. I was digging for treasure, and I found, finally, I found some. And while I could share the many treasures and examples, as I often do on this show, how about we test out this nugget of treasure? You see, they said that the Bible, that Joel, it, quote, reveals Jehovah's character. I couldn't agree more. So join me at Leviticus 21:16 through 21 of the New World Translation, where Jehovah's actions, according to these two voiceover brothers, reveal his character. Oh, it also reveals that Jehovah hates ugly and handicapped people. Controversial, I know, but read it for yourself. Leviticus 21:16, quote, Jehovah continued to speak to Moses, saying, tell Aaron, no man of your offspring throughout their generations who has a defect may approach to present the bread of his God. If there is any man who has a defect, he may not approach. A man who is blind or lame, or has a disfigured face, or one limb too long, a man with a fractured foot or a fractured hand, a hunchback, or a dwarf, or a man with an eye defect, or eczema, or ringworm, or damaged testicles. No man of the offspring of Aaron the priest who has a defect may approach to present Jehovah's offerings made by fire. Because he has a defect, he may not approach to present the bread of his God. End quote. Wow. Treasure indeed. I agree with these brothers in this September 2025 broadcast. Jehovah's actions really do reveal his character. And I gotta tell you, can't you just feel the comfort? You broke out in eczema or ringworm. You're a Levite with a nasty zit on your face. For that matter, you just have an ugly face. My God, one of the family jewels between your legs doesn't look like the other? I'm good. You can stay home and write letters. Jehovah doesn't need ugly people or dwarfs at his book carts. There it is. It certainly does reveal the character of Jehovah. So you're right. In this month's segment, Dig for Treasure, I couldn't be happier. I'm not, however, feeling a lot of comfort. That's a lie. That's a lie. This type of insanity truly does comfort me because it reassures me personally that the best move I ever made was ditching Jehovah, the God who hates ugly people or people with pimples, and of course his 11 guys in upstate New York. On second thought, has Jehovah actually, wow, I'm putting some thought to this. Has he actually seen who Jesus has appointed to the governing body? Has he seen them? Anybody with some eczema? Okay. Any dwarfs? Anybody with some weird testicles? Okay. Time to read Leviticus 21. I don't know, it's inspired. But before you think I'm just making fun, and I am, these two brothers voicing over this segment here, Dig for Treasure, say, quote, "What if someone in the congregation has an irritating personality trait? What about brothers and sisters that get on our last nerve?" End quote. We've heard this somewhere before. And this has apparently really become a problem inside Jehovah's Witnesses. Newsflash, this one's a freebie. It's always been a problem in Jehovah's Witnesses. Can you name 10 people that irritated the hell out of you in your congregation? I can. We just heard Mark Sanderson, though, King Mark, addressing annoying people on camera just weeks ago. And you remember he looked into the camera and said, "You know who you are." And everybody started laughing. And I came away with this being comforted. It sounds to me like everyone is getting on each other's nerves back there. And I can't imagine why. I'm only a little over half through this month's broadcast, and I think I'm going to call it here, folks. The bulk of the rest of the episode is future King Priest Jeffrey Winder talking to us about hope. I haven't even listened to his talk yet, and quite frankly, probably won't. Ever since King Jeff got on camera and said that they don't need to be embarrassed or apologized for, ironically, causing a lot of discomfort, I really just can't take him seriously anymore. The episode rolls on with this month's music video. I'm never going to get used to saying that, by the way, but it's the latest incredibly bad installment called "Tell Them You Love Them." That's the song. And I will say it's not as bad as the country music video or even last month's awful song where they said college was bad, only to have the governing body telling everyone they could do it if they want to. But this one features a brother singing that we should tell people we love them. Not pictured in the video montage is any body of elders receiving their updated Shepherd the Flock of God book, with at least one of the elders turning to chapter 9 and confronting the governing body by asking them if that is how they show love to children. You don't see that. You just see video shots of people eating spaghetti and handing out hugs. Not kidding. And I just came away thinking, I guess protecting kids isn't considered to be showing them love anymore. Maybe it's next month's music video. Maybe they'll sing something like that next month. Not going to hold my breath. We wrap up with all the B-roll videos that you're paying for by going to Ghana. Look how international we are. Every month we get a new country, lots of culture and stuff, along with a subtle message in this video. And I bust out laughing, not going to lie. They go through a little brief history of Ghana, and then they make sure the message lands. It's a subtle message that they outgrew the branch office. I wonder where this could be going. I was waiting for the donation URL website to flash on the screen. Admittedly, it didn't, but we know what they're getting at. But yes, comfort. Comfort. The governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses wants us all to believe that they offer comfort. And they spent the September broadcast listing all of your maladies and problems back to you to show you that they alone can then be the answer. They can comfort you. And they do this by means of your congregation elders. From the Watchtower of October 15th, 1990, pages 30 and 31, questions from the readers, my kind of people, we get, quote, Christian overseers, even though they may be very busy, should take the lead in providing comfort to the flock. They bear in mind that their exemplar, Jesus, the fine shepherd, was commissioned to bind up the brokenhearted and to comfort all the mourning ones. Jesus did not offer such comfort only when it was convenient or when you took their phone call to line up that judicial meeting or that shepherding. No, back to the quote. He was willing to go out of his way to be with Lazarus' bereaved relatives to share their sorrow. Can confirm Lazarus avoided a blood transfusion. So the same guys monitoring your clothes, your body hair, your friendships, your worship, your jobs, your education, and a whole bunch of other things will also be the guys in your congregation that are going to give you a hug when you need it. Was that your experience as a Jehovah's Witness, by the way? But finally, there is this on all things comfort as we close. From the April 2025 Watchtower, pages 23 and 24, paragraph 15, the governing body says this, quote, "At times we experience grief, anxiety, or distress. Perhaps you are going through a distressing situation right now that makes you feel alone. Does anyone understand what you are feeling? Jehovah does. He not only feels our pain, but also comforts us in all our trials. How? When we supplicate Jehovah in prayer, he gives us the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. We also find comfort when we read in the Bible Jehovah's words to us." End quote. Don't read Leviticus 21 if you have an ugly face. Just saying. Back to the quote. "The inspired expressions of love, wisdom, and hope in that treasure can lift our spirits. And Christian meetings comfort us by providing warm fellowship and Bible-based encouragement." End quote. Ah, yes. Comfort. You're miserable. Could be any number of problems. But you see, the formula doesn't change. It's prayer, it's their meetings, and it's the Bible. When you're at an all-time low, when everything is going wrong, when you're in pain, emotionally or physically, you can just go to a meeting. You can just pray more. And you can just read the Bible. And the governing body here, just this year, April 25 Watchtower, guarantees you will be comforted by Jehovah. And as I do, I thought of an example. I immediately propped it open to make sure I had it correct. But at Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 3 of the New World Translation, we learn this, quote, "Seek Jehovah, all you meek ones of the earth, who observe his righteous decrees. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. Probably you will be concealed on the day of Jehovah's anger." End quote. Probably? Wonder if that's how Moses felt. How comforting. I want to thank you for joining me this week. Wherever you may be, I sincerely hope you're comfortable. Be well.